Welcome back, Force Sensitives. It is your boy Darth Bellum, and we are back at it again on Jeddah. I actually jumped away for a little bit to do some exploring to see what the planet had to offer before linking back up with Marin. When last we left off, we were given a split path mission where we can either go back to Kobo to investigate some artifacts there and the Spire again, or we can go to this moon base to research Tanalorr further. Tanalorr is the extra planet that we're looking for. That's also being looked for by the homie Dagan Gera, the antagonist so far. And just before we get the chance to get on the ship to make our decision, Bode, shifty as ever, he runs up to us to provide for us the Blickie, which actually is a form of unlocking a new stance. I'm sure everybody's seen it in the trailers or other gameplay videos. We up the toolie now, so we'll be running with that, and in this video I'm going to explain that stance and the other stances you unlock as you progress through the game. So let's dive in. Let me show y'all some footage on this whole stance business. Spoiler alert, I don't love it, but I'm gonna show you why as we progress. So I want you guys to notice in this little demonstration video his footwork, the position of his elbow, and the broad strokes and slashes of the blade, as well as his opening move was a lunging stab. That, in combination with each other, screams Form 2 combat, which is Makashi, a style that I'll elaborate on more so in the video. But for now, here's my vexation. They're mixing my favorite lightsaber form with a blaster, and that to me, it's very ghetto, and I'm not a fan. I'm not the biggest fan of it, but in the game I get why it's there, and I kind of definitely can get into it with the lore behind like Cal's mindset and his experience with the Jedi Order as it is. So just a little background about the style. Makashi, or Form 2 lightsaber combat, it's the form favored by Count Dooku, and it's really strictly meant for saber-to-saber combat. Its modern or real-life applications are grounded in like fencing, and the style is kind of all about fancy footwork, elaborate blade movement, and like dodging and weaving in and out of an opponent's defense. Now, with Cal's history and like the lore in the game that we've seen so far, I can kind of get why he would use that style in tandem with the blaster, because I'm pretty sure his Jedi predecessors taught Makashi as a strict blade-to-blade practice, with its weaknesses only really being in like an opponent that can play ranged very well. Still, it's kind of like a slap in the face. I mean, I just don't like guns, but in the words of Obi-Wan Kenobi, so uncivilized. Another cool aspect of Makashi is keeping one hand on the blade. You'll notice Cal does that, which is another telling sign that he's utilizing Makashi with the Blickie. Now, in his case, he's using the free hand to wield his blaster, but for other stylists that utilize Form 2, that free hand is used to employ different force maneuvers, you know, force push, pull, force lightning in the case of Dooku. And when I'm using it as Darth Bellum, well, I'm not going to spoil anything in the series, but you might see some crazy ratchet stuff out of me. I might, in the middle of a rumble, reach out and grip up my opponent to pull them in closer with like my physical strength and not just the force, but that's neither here nor there. I want to talk more about the actual blaster part of the combat. So you'll see in this fight here, I did employ the blaster a few times. Ooh, look, a Ho-Oh in the back. Legend has it that when you see this legendary Pokemon, you get one of your wishes granted. Wrong game? Wrong game, whatever. There are Wampas everywhere. But, okay, so utilizing the blaster portion of the stance, as you can see on the left-hand side, there is like a limit to how many shots you have. Those shots recharge the more you use your blaster in between, so it's making you mix up the combat, vary up the decor a little bit, so you go from committing to those broad slashes to, well, unlike what I just did there, because I am getting fucked up. But you could just tell that you're meant to go in and out of combat seamlessly, fighting close up and then ranged. There, what you just saw there also was the charge function. So you get to do like a Mega Man kind of thing and hold the shoot button down, and it lets out a heavier blast than normal. Now, something I also wanted to make note of here, not so much the stab and the deflecting blaster bolt, but when the other melee stormtrooper comes in, watch the defense. Get it under the blade and scoops it around to open and wide up. Like that's typical Makashi defense for you. It's arcing the blade at a certain angle where you can reposition it and twist your way out to just reposition an offense straight away after deflecting an offensive maneuver coming your way. So I like that it's that detailed. Shout out to whoever did the combat training for the homie who actually plays Cal, because that was very impressive. I'm a fan. Not to mention, that's also the very same way that I defend my core vectors, so that was dope to see that. And that essentially concludes my utilization of the blaster stance. While it can be very useful, I know a lot of people are falling in love with it. To me, it's like, nah, I'm really here for the blade-to-blade combat for real. Like, I'm as you can see, I switched back to just using the simple single blade, and like it's my jam as I fight the damn Star Wars version of the Doom guy. But whatever. This actual boss fight is leading up to obtaining the crossguard stance, and I won't dive too deep into it because at this point in time in the game I wasn't really using it too much, so I don't really have that much footage to show from it. But I will break down like the necessity of its use, or what I believe to be the necessity of its use in time. Now, while my peers in Urban Force would probably say that I'd excel with this style in real life, I totally favor balanced, rounded combat, hence me utilizing Makashi. I'll elaborate on that in another video most likely, because I had a blast actually just lightly touching on that style and my adoration for it. But the crossguard stance is basically like using an old school longsword or a Claymore. In game, it really helps blitz through defensive opponents and those that try to be evasive. I use the term blitz loosely though, as the stance kind of takes time to build momentum. Now I'm sure over time, upgrading the system will help balance it further, but from what little I've used it, the sacrifice of speed for power, it seems to be a solid trade-off, making this stance best for pushing through a boss fight quicker than usual. So I learned early on, utilizing this stance, that there are some opponents where it's great for because it'll plow through their defense, but then there are others like this one, where if they're anywhere faster than you with this stance, they're going to get up in that ass. It's kind of hard jumping back and forth between offense and defense with this stance, unlike the single blade style which I've been favoring, or the staff. So the ideal opponent that this stance is best for would be somebody with a high posture bar, or that white bar underneath their health when you notice that it doesn't take as much damage. There are heavier enemies that use heavier weapons or that are just bigger than you that will definitely demand that you have this equipped when you pull up on them. So that's kind of what I'm getting out of this. The game just puts the necessity of it just right up in your face. You won't, probably just assuming, I don't think you'll see me use this one too much in the future, unless of course a boss or like a heavy character is on my last nerve. But those are the two stances that we've been given so far, on top of the double blade stance, dual wielding, or Jarkai, dual fencing. I might break that down too separately, but for now I'm gonna stick to possibly using the single blade and the staff. But that's the insightful breakdown of the two stances. So now we can dive right back into the story where we left off, taking these two High Republic devices back to Eno Cordova, who will investigate and then hopefully give us a dope new mission. So as always guys, well, one, thanks for coming, and two, stay tuned, stay dope, and may the Force be with y'all. Peace. Pause on that, bruh. Damn.